If this message has found you, you are a multi-passionate, and you can easily feel misunderstood by the people around you, or even at times by yourself. It can feel like you don't make sense to other people, or sometimes you don't make sense even to yourself. And I have a whole soul session on the concept of being confusing and how you haven't come to this earth dimension to make sense to anyone, that imposing logic and rationality and this consciousness that prioritizes those things onto you is actually a great disservice to your magic, to your chaos, to your expansiveness, and to the ways that you resist definition and categorization. That is actually a beautiful and precious and sacred aspect of your being. And what I want to talk about in today's transmission to you is to remember that the consciousness that you are existing within is not necessarily set up on a social level, on a collective level, is not necessarily set up to understand or support your consciousness, but that there is something deeply sacred and spiritual about the multi-passionate and the role that they play in this paradigm, and in being a bridge to the next kind of paradigm, to a more loving paradigm. So we're going to be talking about why the world needs multi-passionates and why you as a multi-passionate are a puzzle piece that integrates so many different aspects of reality, and therefore we need you to stand in the truth and the power of that puzzle piece, of that integration, of that unity in a world filled with so much separation. So let's start there. So in this current moment, a huge wound and pain facing the collective is that of isolation, of loneliness, of the sense of alienation that is created by hierarchical systems and structures like white supremacy, sexism, and homophobia, transphobia, imperialism, capitalism, all of these ways that these systems are alienating because they turn other beings into enemies, into separate, and they create dominance instead of interconnection and relationship. And so they will always cause suffering within the collective. They create a sense of alienation, not only from each other, the idea that we're separate from each other, but also from ourselves. So you might have heard the phrase, you are wired for connection. You, as a human being, you need connection. You are made for connection with other human beings. And I would say this is true, but also even deeper than that, in my opinion, is that you are connection. You are not separate from this phenomenon called connection. You are a connection of all the people you've met, of all the stories you've lived and that have lived you, of all the beings you've come to know and love. You're a connection of the languages you speak or the language you speak and reality. You're a connection of the place you were born, the places you've been. You're a connection of everything you've ever read, all the art that you've ever been seen by and seen. You're a connection. You are a walking embodiment of connection. And your multi-passionateism is like an orgasm between all the things, all the curiosities of that connection. You being a multi-passionate is an expression of that connection. It's an expression of the curiosities that you have across different dimensions of reality and experience. You may be reading several books at a time because you're so interested in many different topics. You may be pursuing different interests, and to other people it's like, can't you just pick a lane? You're never going to get good, quote unquote, at anything if your attention is so dispersed over multiple pursuits. You're never going to be a master at anything, quote unquote, which is the goal in this paradigm. You must master everything. You must dominate everything. And we can't separate that obsession from the paradigm of slavery and mastering something or someone, okay? The paradigm of colonialism, the paradigm of patriarchy, and the idea of this mastering and dominance as being the highest form of being. And at the same time, there's nothing wrong with wanting to improve and master a craft. I'm just saying the word mastery has to be understood in its political context as well. So you are a walking embodiment of connection. And if you think about it, an orgasm is when two beings or multiple beings in pleasure come together and experience this eros together. And I feel that that is the nature of the multi-passionate. You're a walking orgasm of all the curiosities that bring you to life. all the interests you have that create that powerful sense of eros within you, aliveness, playfulness, curiosity, creativity, to borrow the words of Esther Perel in terms of how she conceives of eros, and then also to lean on Audre Lorde in the sense of how the erotic is this deep source of power within each of us. Because once we understand what the erotic feels like, tastes like, sounds like, then that becomes a standard by which we live our lives, a lens through which we see our lives. The erotic brings us into pleasure and aliveness, changes our standards for living. So you are not just one form of eros, but all these different forms of eros embodied in one person who is so turned on, in a sense, by life itself, so turned on by creation and multiple forms of creation, so turned on by relationship and multiple forms of relationship, so turned on by depth and going deeper into the nature of things, but also so turned on by breadth and tasting different fruits that the world has to offer you. So there's this deep erotic sense of the multi-passionate. I mean, the idea that, first of all, you're passionate at all in a world that is often trying to deaden our passions or constrain them. And then in the insistence not only of having one, but having multiple. It's saying, I have a lot of love to give and I want to give that love to all these different forms and mediums. Because who I am when I'm writing is not the same as who I am when I'm speaking. It's not the same exact person as who I am when I'm dancing. Each of these brings me into a different kind, a different texture and flavor of my own aliveness. So you have a unifying way of being in the world. You see connections. You know, it's funny how people say that creativity or a form of creativity is making connections between things that people don't associate with each other. And it's like we are making the connection between dance and poetry. But actually, part of the beauty of our consciousness as humans is we get to bring attention and awareness and language to the interconnectedness of things as they are. So we don't make connections, you know, in the sense of create a connection that wasn't there. We bring to light a connection that already is. In the cosmos, all is one, all is connected. The universe is connection. And we are the ones who get to bring to light for each other that state of interconnectedness by, in a sense, making connections. We can hold the paradox, but also in another sense, revealing the connections that already are. And that is what the multi-passionate does. And that is why it's such an incredible consciousness for you to be proud of and for you to continue to cultivate. Why? Because in a world that is increasingly rooted in separation, in finding distinctions and living in the binary or the either or, and creating the sense of us versus them, or creating a sense of disconnection, separation. It's either me or it's you. We're not looking for the us. We're not looking for the conjoinment. And this is a very Western view. I feel like in collectivist cultures, we are looking for the connection. We are looking for the both and. We are looking for the us. However, in the realm of work, because most of the world has learned what work means from the capitalism imposed upon them, I feel that it's still really important to understand the way that this separating consciousness exists. Because even if you have a culture that is rooted in connection and collectivism, you'll probably still have an understanding of work that's more rooted in capitalism, because that is the prevailing order of most of the world. And so what I mean by that is, you might come from a culture that's super collectivist, but then still people in your life don't understand why you want to pursue multiple interests, because in the domain of work, we have a consciousness that's been limited, okay? And so what's important to understand is you represent a unifying consciousness, but you live in a society and structure that represents a separatist consciousness, an either or consciousness, a this or that consciousness, a refusal to accept paradox and conflict and tension as something that is actually an expression of divinity, of aliveness, of spirituality, is in the paradox, is in the connection between things, the interconnection, the fact that we are all stitched together. And as a multi-passionate, you are a stitching together of all these aspects, these ways of being, maybe different forms of creation, different forms of learning, different subjects. And the thing is, when you repress or hide a part of your multi-passionate character, when you say, oh, it's going to be too confusing if I write about this topic because I usually write about that topic, then what happens? You, as the puzzle piece that integrates these threads, we lose some of that potency, because now you're only giving us a couple of the threads because that's more palatable. When really, as a puzzle piece, what you do is connect the disparate pieces around you. You connect the pieces around you, and you represent that piece that exactly connects to all these different aspects. So when you weaken or take out that piece, then those things are not as vividly connected. We don't get to feel the embodied presence of someone who connects those things for us. Do you hear what I'm saying? So you are here as someone who integrates, who brings things together, as a connector, as a bridge. And I know that that can be really isolating because you seek understanding because you're a human being. But I've been thinking a lot about the idea of trying to only give. Try to only give and not to take. Try to give, it's like the idea of seeking to understand more than you seek to be understood. I think the multi-passionate inherently is not fully going to be understood by the consciousness that we're living in at a mass level. Like, there's no way where we're fully going to be understood in this moment in time. And this is where I also say, it depends by whom. Of course, by other multi-passionates, you will be very understood. You may even expand their sense of their own interconnectedness, their own connections, and what they're here to integrate within the collective consciousness. But on the mass scale, it is going to be something that we don't access as easily. And this is also what I call stand out in order to stand with. First, you have to stand out, okay? Wherever you choose to share yourself. This is also why I talk a lot about the fear of being seen. To magnetize people towards you who are deeply aligned with you, whether it's in person or online, first you stand out. First you put your hand up and you say the brave thing that's on your heart. First you make the video. First you say the thing. And then from that place of standing out, from that place of being willing to dare greatly, as Brene Brown says, from that place, you can then attract people who would stand with that consciousness, that creativity, that way of being or seeing in the world. And that's when you attract friendships and mentors and peers and a community to you, whether it's by hosting an event that at first no one comes to, so you're standing out, but then slowly over time, more people join and therefore you get to stand with. So in order for us to stand with the people we are really here for, first, sometimes what we are asked to do is to stand out. And in that standing out, we actually become the person, we become the version of ourselves that we even deeply feel like we want to stand with. Because in that sense is the sense of coming home to who we already knew we were, but weren't brave enough to be publicly. And so there's a lot of standing with the divine, standing with each other, standing with nature. There's a lot of connection that we can find in that place. But anyways, I digress. So as a being of interconnectedness, as a multi-passionate, your task in this lifetime may not be to find understanding. Like, that may not be what you've been assigned to look for in this lifetime or to seek or to embody. What if you did not come here to be understood? What if that's actually not part of what your soul has been assigned to in this lifetime? And actually, you can hold within the vessel of your being the feeling of feeling misunderstood at times. You can hold that in service of these other beautiful traits and qualities and experiences that being a multi-passionate allows you to experience and embody. What do I mean by that? A swimmer cannot hope in this lifetime not to get wet. They can't say, you know what I really want as someone who knows they're a swimmer is to just not get wet. That's not how it works. Everything comes with what it comes with. And I think part of being a multi-passionate in this lifetime comes with a sense of not fully fitting in or being understood by the framework, by the fabric of our society, but knowing that we are a stitching together of a new possibility and of a way of being in the world that insists on aliveness, it insists on passion, it insists on creativity. And so it paves the way for it to become eventually something deeply understood in the collective consciousness. But that may not happen in our lifetime, and that's okay. Like, we can hold that. You can hold not being understood. And again, that feeling of not being understood is temporary. Eventually, if you give to your craft, this is something I just believe. If you give to your crafts, they will give to you. So if you can see that the specific way that your curiosities stitch together is divine, it is orgasmic, like you are turned on by these different aspects of reality. If you allow the collective turn on of all those things, that is this orgasmic state that you are here to be a walking embodiment of. Just as we're all here as embodiments of an orgasm that once happened. Hopefully on both sides, but you never know. And so this is why I encourage multi-passionates to be confusing. Why? Because on the surface, we understand so much, right? Like, we're such an understanding species. Beneath that, like beneath this reality, we know that there is so much mystery. There's so much uncertainty. There is so much we don't know. There's so much that is deeply confusing. And as a multi-passionate, you're in touch with that deeper reality of uncertainty and confusion. I often see people say how to manage multiple passions. And I kind of believe I don't even know if, I understand where that comes from. Like, I've had the same question. What are the systems? What are the notion templates? Absolutely. It's not either or. And also at the same time, is that the most we can aspire to as multi-passionates in this lifetime? Is the most you can aspire to manage your multi-passions? Or is that this capitalistic economic mindset, like infiltrating this divine, expansive, orgasmic, spiritual way of being, which is actually, I want to just play with life in multiple different ways. And these different expressions of my aliveness bring me more into that aliveness. And so it cannot be managed. It can only be experienced and felt. We can give our multi-passionateness our presence and our love and our curiosity, but we will never fully manage it. It's unmanageable. It's chaotic by design. We are this beautiful chaos, and aren't so many of the magnificent aspects of reality this embodiment of chaos, of magic? We don't get chaos without magic, or magic without chaos. Like, there's sort of one mountain looked at from different angles is, oh, that's chaotic, oh, that's magical. Like the butterfly effect. It comes from the notion of chaos theory, where these mathematicians and scientists study these deeply chaotic, complex systems. And in those systems, they find these links between events that seem so separate, between the flapping wings of the butterfly and then the pressure it exerts on the air around it. And then therefore, as they scale it out in this complex dynamic system, they're able to link it to mass events on the other side of the earth. That is chaos, and that is magic. You know what I'm saying? So you're an embodiment of that. So if we keep seeking, what is the system? What is the process? And I get it. But I want us to understand, just like the swimmer cannot hope to not get wet, there's no way that in this lifetime, we're going to feel like we have a full hold on our multiple passions. Like, oh, finally, the perfect system to manage all of this. Finally, the perfect time spent with my singing and spent with my reading and spent with my dancing. The perfect time also working and managing responsibilities in my life, ensuring I'm paying the bills, but also tending to my creativity and also being a good parent and also being a good friend. Like, this perfect balance, or this system that takes away some of the underlying anxiety or fear around not being able to do all of that. It's almost like hoping that we can be the swimmers who don't get wet. Like, part of our immersiveness in this reality is actually experiencing the grief of not being able to do it all. The grief of the experience of wanting to give our love to so many things that we don't have time for. And so the multi-passionate is an embodiment of so many different possibilities. But then what happens? There's a beautiful aspect of possibilities. Everything feels possible. But the shadow aspect, or the challenging aspect for us to grasp, is that not all possibilities will be realized. That's why they're called possibilities. So the multi-passionate is also the one who has all these different dreams. What if I did this? What if I did that? And it's deeply painful to accept, or even to try to accept, that we may not actually realize all those dreams. That's a huge grief that we carry. But we understand that that's part of just how much love we have to give. We can't separate love and grief. We can't love someone in our lives without deeply fearing or grieving losing them in some way. So we're signing up for the both and. So just as we love doing so much, we will also in this lifetime experience the grief of all we wish we had the time to do. We wish we had the space to do. We wish we had the money to do, but we're not able to do. And I'm not saying that that just is what it is and there's nothing we can do. I think always there is the desire to resist and to rebel against what is. And I think that's very important. Like, we can challenge something just as it is, but also know that the idea that we'll be able to do everything in this lifetime, we're the ones who are awake to how tragic it is that that's not the case. We're deeply alive and awake to that. You are deeply alive and awake to that as a multi-passionate in this reality. One of the other pains of the multi-passionate is the idea that you really value freedom. And so sometimes it can be difficult to finish things or to start things that feel like they may impose on your freedom in some way. So sometimes what I hear from people who have multiple different interests that I coach is they say, well, what if I start this TikTok or YouTube channel or this blog on one topic and subject, and then everyone starts to expect that of me, but then I want to change, and then they say, oh, you've changed, or like, why are you talking about this now? And I'm constrained. And so what we are asking of you is to honor your divine unfolding. Honor what is alive to you in that moment and create from that place. Don't feel beholden to create what you once created or to create what people expect of you. You have to be so in touch with yourself, because remember, yourself is a connection. So just as what I say is we only rise rooted. So in order for you to be in touch with yourself, you need to be so rooted. But what are you rooted in? Not purely yourself. You're rooted in everything that connects you, everything that roots you. You're rooted in that which makes you a self, which is everything connected together, specifically in the way that you connect them. Mind, body, soul, place, time, space, way of thinking, language, like you weave together each of these things. So the roots of you, the soil that you're drawing from is a particular soil. There's things that are very obvious to you because you've grown up with them in your environment, or they're things that you've just felt from a very young age. They're not obvious to everyone. So as a multi-passionate, rooting yourself in that essence, knowing that that essence is connection. From that, you can draw up through your roots into the stem, into the leaves, into the flowers, and so on. And from that place, you can offer us the fruits of your being. Not from starting at the top, but starting at the bottom. So if you honor what is true for you, that's a way of honoring the power that you have as a multi-passionate. You know, power is something that we often associate really negatively because of the way that it's been taught to us. Authority, domineering, dominance, control, oppression, power over. But as I often say, we observe power throughout nature, and we observe very benevolent forms of power. The power of the sun to allow for life on earth, or even to make us feel more alive. Seasonal affective disorder, the absence of sunshine. We need the sun. We see plants wilting in the absence of the sunshine. The sun's power is what does that. But the power at the correct distance and in the correct intensity, right? We know that there's the power of the waters to create stillness and peace, to nourish and hydrate, but also to create absolute chaos, to overwhelm, to flood, to destroy. So there's this power in every being. In every substance there's power. And it's when we're in alignment with our natural power and we give from that place, just as the sun gives, just as the water gives. If we give from that power within us that is natural to us, that is what we are here to offer the collective. And so when we are alienated from that power, as multi-passionates, as people, as creators, we're not going to be as potent. And sometimes we fear our own potency. We fear our own power because we've been taught that power makes us vulnerable, or power is bad, or power is something we can't claim, especially depending on your identities. You're not supposed to claim that you are powerful because this whole system was about removing you from power, removing you from your essence as a powerful being. That is the nature of oppression. Let me make you feel so diminished that you don't associate power as something that you have, so that you do not rebel against me, so that you do not realize that collectively all of you could overcome some of us. You know what I'm saying? And we see this in so many different movements, that the movement required a recognition of the inherent power of those people. Black consciousness in South Africa, as an idea, it shifted everything because it was this reclamation and recognition of we are powerful. So when you are in touch with your inherent power as a multi-passionate, you can see the power of the things that you bring together, and that is your birthright, actually. That all of reality in some way interconnects reality. All of reality is a piece without which we couldn't actually fundamentally have the underlying reality. And so you are. That the reality would cease to be what it is without that piece of it. Okay? So tap into that rootedness, that power, speak from that place. Create from that place. Know that you are powerful. That part of your power is that you have these multiple passions. And they are here to be lived and felt and shared. They're not necessarily here to be managed. Even that word, managed. This is what capitalism has done to our consciousness. We think that's all we should aspire to, is to manage. At the same time, I understand that we crave systems so that we can support our flow. I totally understand that. I really do understand that. As a multi-passionate, you are a representation of the oneness of everything. And actually, all beings on earth are. That even in this conversation, I'm sort of creating this separation between multi-passionates and people who are not. We're all one. I'm trying to speak into the hearts of the people who this is meant for, but know that we want to radiate that love out to all as well. And we just do what we can here on earth. So, as a representation of oneness, in a consciousness that prioritizes separateness, you are going to confuse people. But know that just as the universe is one, you are a microcosm of that oneness. So we know that there's no separation in the universe. The universe is exactly that entity, that energy, that force, that power that unites all. It's everything. So the universe is one. And we are each a microcosm of the universe. At every scale, our cells are a microcosm. Our organs are a microcosm. And you as a person are a microcosm. And then the culture or the family you're from is a microcosm. So we have all these scales of reality happening all at once in this divine symphony, this music of reality. And you are here as a microcosm of that oneness. So when you are ever saying, but how can I like this and that? Just know that is what the cosmos does. The cosmos integrates all. The cosmos loves all. Or the cosmos is that energy or that force, that power that is all. And so you liking different topics that you like reading or doing different things, know that that's so in alignment with the cosmos. And let's talk about a microcosm in the sense of you are also an ecosystem. So everything that you're passionate about, that fuels you, that feeds you, that nourishes you, imagine that that's an ecosystem of your being. And we know that it's actually not you on this island. We're all this forest of being connected. And so we're actually one giant forest of being that's been taught to think of it as separate trees or something. Language will never fully capture reality, and that's why also colonialism will always impose a language on the people to control their relationship to that reality. So nourishing these different parts will bring the entire ecosystem to life and into harmony. So you are here as this divine representation of oneness, and I hope that this helps you think of yourself in this spiritual way as playing this beautiful role of unifying and of showing unity and embodying unity, expressing it, living the paradox, living the both and, refusing to choose or to pick to the extent that you can, knowing that being able to create at all, let alone multiple things, such a privilege, such a huge privilege. Every time you do something that brings you more to life, you honor life itself. And life is multiple. Life is complex. Life is everything, everywhere, all at once. And life has already chosen you. And so being skeptical of your interests or draws or pulls doesn't serve life. Because our curiosities are exactly those aspects of life or being that enliven us. They expand us. They bring us into more aliveness. So we honor life when we honor our curiosities. And curiosities and the aspects of reality that we're drawn to, of course they want to feel drawn to. Don't we all want people to be attracted to us in the sense of like they're drawn to our spirit, they're drawn to our soul, or physically they're drawn to us? So similarly, these aspects of reality that you love, they love your love. Or we could imagine that at least. We could imagine they feel seen. They feel acknowledged. They feel like, oh my word, I have conversations with other people and they just ignore me. They're just on their phone. But you, my love, when you sing, when you're with music, you're with me. You're truly present. I love that. How can we do this more? Can we do this again? Like finding this erotic sense of all these different aspects of reality flirting with us, and then us flirting with them and deciding, oh, whoa, this is a match. This is why I call this creative polyamory. We're here to give our love to these multiple energies and mediums and ways of being in the world. And we know that we live in a monogamous consciousness. I am monoamorous, but I fully love the theory of polyamory. And I think it is a radical consciousness, a form of decolonizing love, as long as it's done in ethical non-monogamy sense. I feel that that same way of thinking can be applied to our creativity. There are different relationships that we are in with our crafts, and they all have expectations and desires and needs. And we have to understand, okay, how am I going to relate in the most enlivening, nourishing, mutually beneficial way to each of these crafts and each of these practices. And so if you're watching this, if you're still here, you are 100% creatively polyamorous. You did not come to earth to only give your love to one form of creation. And that is beautiful. But remember that we live in a world starved of love. And so it's difficult for people to fully appreciate or even understand people who want to give their love to the world in so many different ways. That's also part of, not only the only reason, but part of why a lot of people fully are like, wait, can't you just be satisfied with one lover? Like, how dare you ask for more than that? And it's the same thing. How dare you ask for more than one passion in such a passion-starved culture? And you do dare. You do dare. You are that daring. You are that interweaving. You are that connection. You are that ecosystem. And I hope that this has helped you to feel more seen. I hope that this has offered you a perspective that nourishes you, that nourishes the ecosystem of your being, of our being. Because the more you are in your aliveness and you offer yourself from that place, the more the ecosystem of humanity, the forest of humanity, feels more nourished. Just as how the tree over here is doing is going to impact how the tree over here is doing, because we're all interbeing. We're all intra-connected. We're all connected within each other. When we do that, we enliven the entire forest of being. The only way for us to change the world, for us to create a universe, a planet rooted in love, is for us each to tend to and do the work, the art of loving. And to become more loving involves necessarily becoming more loving with the way that we interact, not only with people and the relationships we're in with people, but also we relate to craft. We are makers. If you're over here, you're here to make, and also to receive, to be, and also to make and to offer that making to the collective in some way, shape, or form, including to yourself. So you are divine, and the collective needs you in your multi-passionateness, proudly standing in that truth, even if you need to stand out, trusting that eventually you will stand with, you will magnetize your people to you, and they will feel so much more nourished for the way that you share your perspective. Do not narrow yourself down. Do not water yourself down. Do not niche down if that's not what you are here to do. Be in your multiplicity. Refuse to make sense, even at times to yourself, because what if that's not what your soul has come here to do? I love you so much. You are so magical. You are poetry. You are the poem that someone is dreaming of. You are the manifestation. You are not purely out there wanting and seeking and calling things in. You are a calling in. And as you are in this exact moment, in ways that you might not even fully see, people are calling you in. They're calling you in as a friend. They're calling you in as a lover, as a partner. They're calling you in as a teacher. They're calling you in as a mentor or as someone they would love to mentor. People are dreaming of you because it is only through each other that we unlock dreams at all. The collective is dreaming through you. And you being in that essence of your being and standing in that, honoring your power, is one of the ways that you honor life, that you honor life itself, that you bring more life to the collective, that you bring more love to the collective by rooting yourself in what is enlivening to you and what is enlivening to you. I love you so much, my love, and I hope that you enjoyed today's soul session. If you did, I recommend the soul session Be Confusing, which is basically a love song. I don't want to say a war cry, a love song to multi-passionates who fear the ways that they are confusing, and to really reclaim that as part of our essence, as part of the divine puzzle and magic and mystery of this universe and of this human experience. I love you so much, my love. I hope this has served your deepest consciousness, and I will see you on the next soul session. To stay in touch with me, please do sign up for my newsletter on www.ayandastood.com, where you will receive a free creative activation that you can listen to before you create, to tap into your parasympathetic nervous system, a sense of calm, a sense of rest and digest, they call it, so that from that place of calmness, you can create work that truly feels in alignment with you. Sign up because I have some really exciting things coming in the coming weeks, so I'd love to see you there. I'll see you on the next soul session. I love you. Bye.